Hello and welcome to the Eye on the U podcast, the Miami Herald's Miami Hurricanes podcast. I'm David Wilson and I am joined as always on the other line by Susan Miller Degnan, our Hurricanes beat writer here at the Herald. Susan, we've got a win to talk about.
Yes, we
For the
do.
first time in a month.
Yeah, we do. That's good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Maybe another win Saturday.
Yeah, well, we'll talk. We'll do a little Duke preview, but it's midseason. So we figured just kind of a good chance. We've kind of done it a couple of weeks in a row, checking in on the state of things. But midseason, we're in midseason and review time. Midseason awards is the format we've got this week. I think. Look, first, should we really quickly just put a bow on the Virginia Tech game? Obviously, they needed to win that. I think for 3 quarters, it was like very emphatic, like not a whole lot to complain about. Obviously, closer than it should have been at the end, but ultimately Miami goes to Blacksburg, kind of does what they need to do. I think another good game from Tyler Van Dyke is really encouraging because it wasn't just that crappy North Carolina defense. He clearly has clicked again and is back to being the Tyler Van Dyke we're used to seeing. Just what are your thoughts, I guess, coming off of that game?
Positive thoughts.
Yeah. First time, like good vibes, right? You were there at post game. They seem to be pretty good spirits after the win.
They did, other than the end, than making us all sweat. I mean, at the end, if they got off to a fast start, which was great. And Tyler was, great. The first 3 quarters, everybody it was nice. And they were up 20-0, and then it was incredible. I mean, just to see the other team come back and really almost, a touchdown would have given them the win and an extra point. So
yes, it's not all good, obviously, and that's a game that should not have been close. I'm trying to find the stat. Someone tweeted a good stat at me about the yard. Miami is way down in the country in points per yard right now, which is kind of about being terrible in the red zone, basically, right? Like it was kind of the story of the North Carolina game. They have the quarterback throw for 500 yards and only score 24 points, and it almost bit them again on Saturday, where Tyler, they were close to 500 yards, I think, total, over 400 as a team, and only scored 20 points. Like, they've got to get that figured out. And if they get that figured out, then they're in okay shape, but it's a pretty big flaw right now.
Yeah. I mean, the red zone, I think there were two touchdowns in the red zone and 2 field goals, but I mean, they have to score more touchdowns, basically. And the idea that Tyler's deep ball is clicking is a very good sign. They've got to be able to run, they can't run.
Yeah. Miami, this was, as of sometime on Saturday, 117th in the country in points per yard, basically. So like just not putting it in the end zone effectively, considering, but again, making progress, I think. And they're coming off the Middle Tennessee game. This was a team that had like endless amounts of flaws, and they're refining some of the things and trending back in the right direction. What we mostly want to do this week is do our midseason awards. We did some preseason awards in the preseason. We'll talk postseason awards, I'm sure, in the postseason. But midseason here, Miami is 3-3. A lot of downs, some ups. Like we said, trending back in the right direction. So this is just, we figured awards is a good structure to talk about kind of all the big picture, what's gone well and what hasn't gone so well with this team this year. So let's just jump right into it with, I guess, the biggest award, and that is the offensive MVP of this team. I think we are in lockstep here, and not necessarily because this guy's been lights out, but there's not a whole lot of other options. That's Tyler Van Dyke, who just the last 2 games, if we'd done this 2 weeks ago, I don't know if we would have said this. We probably would have said Henry Parrish at that point. Obviously, Parrish missed the last game, which hurt his case. But I think this team is still going to go. Ultimately, they're going to go as Tyler goes. And we've seen that the last 2 weeks that He's the one guy on this roster that can elevate this team. Part of it's because the position he plays, obviously the quarterback can always do that, but also just because of the talent he can single-handedly, just like he did last year, he can single-handedly put this team in every game they play.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. Tyler Van Dyke is right now the MVP of a 3-3 team.
Yeah.
But he's shown that he's still like we said, he still has it. Okay, where it seemed like he lost it for a little bit. He got it back. He's confident. He said a lot of that is his confidence actually factor. And positivity, he calls it. And not getting down if he misses a throw, but he's been way more accurate. And of course, we can thank the receivers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it is he had confidence you mentioned confidence. He had confidence last year to just throw it to Charleston Rambo and trust that guy's going to make a hard play every once in a while. Right. And he's got that, certainly it looks like, in Colby Young right now, and increasingly in Frank Ladson. Obviously he always had that confidence in Xavier Restrepo. So they've got a couple of guys that he clearly trusts now, which, didn't seem like the case early in the year, where he was probably trying to be a little too perfect.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good sign that he's your MVP. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. 2 weeks ago when this team was 2-3 and we were worried about, like, is this offense broken? It would have been really hard to pick an offensive MVP. These last 2 weeks for Tyler, like, they've got their identity back to an extent on offense. They were trying to jam a square peg into a round hole, I think, for the first month of this season, and just letting Tyler cook again. A lot more spread stuff we've seen. You just look at, they're doing 3 receivers more often. You look at the snap counts for Brashard Smith. They've ticked up in the last couple of weeks. Like, they're playing the way that this team probably should have always been playing, and Tyler is the reason why they should play like that. He's the beneficiary of it, yes, but he's also the reason why it works. Defensive MVP. This one is a little more interesting. I think a couple names. I kind of narrowed my list to 2. Who's your pick here?
Akeem Mesidor.
Okay. Yeah, my 2, it's between him and Cam Kinchens, I think. So I'll, for diversity's sake, I'll go with Cam Kinchens. I mean, Mesidor, obviously, the last game he had is one of the best games a Miami defensive lineman has had in a really long time. So, yeah.
And he's progressing. I mean, he's just progressing. He was named National Player of the Week, Walter Camp, this week. Yep. I mean, he had 3.5 sacks on the road against Virginia Tech. I wrote, let's see, he's the 3rd ACC player in the past 3 seasons to have 3.5 sacks in one game, and the first one since 2020, and the last player to have at least 3.5 sacks is Greg Rousseau.
Is that against Florida State? Was that a Florida State game?
Yes, he had 4 against Florida State in 2019. But that's really good company. I don't think it's an outlier kind of thing. I mean, he's really good. Very smart. They've liked him since day one. And he's had like a nagging foot injury.
Yeah, I remember week 1, like, he was like the PFF defensive lineman of the week or something, right, against Bethune-Cookman, and then he missed game 2. So, like, he hasn't been 100% clearly. Yeah,
exactly. And he's just, I mean, I have 14.5 tackles for loss, 9, his first 2, West Virginia. I'm sorry, West Virginia, 14.5 tackles for loss. But the thing is, he's pretty good in every way.
Yes, and we've talked about it. He was a nose tackle at West Virginia, and now he's like an edge rusher.
Yeah, he's really increased his stock has risen. Put it that way.
I was about to say he's interesting because I haven't seen his name pop up on like big draft boards or anything yet. I'm wondering how high he could climb, because if he played, so he's got 5 sacks. Let's say he finished with 10 sacks this year, which he's on pace to. I mean, maybe more if they get a bowl game, right? Like I want, and again, the fact that he has played nose tackle, defensive end, like he's played
And he's
everywhere
smart.
on the
He's
defensive line.
smart. Right.
He's smart. He's young. I mean, he's obviously he's a draft eligible sophomore.
Right. Third year sophomore.
Third year
Exactly.
sophomore. Like he's an really interesting. I think once we get to it's too early to really think about draft prospects. Obviously, we've talked about Zion in the past because he's popped up in first round before his injuries.
Yeah.
But Mesidor is a guy who feels like he is like skyrocketing. And I don't think any of us expect him to be one and done here at Miami, but and I mean, the way he's playing right now, like he looks like a guy, like he looks like an NFL defensive lineman right now.
Yes. And
I'll say the other thing with Mesidor is I think his presence is felt right now because of how much Miami lacked a great defensive end last year, right? We talked about it that
for sure
after losing Jalen Phillips and Quincy Roche and Greg Rousseau, Jafari Harvey had an okay year, but it was the first time in a long time that Miami did not have that like NFL draft ready defensive lineman, and Mesidor. It's just a reminder of how important it is to have a guy like that, because I mean, he's a game wrecker.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. The difference, and I was thinking of that yesterday, difference between this year's defensive line and last year's, such a big difference. I mean, and now they're coming on strong. They have this great rotation going. They have way more bodies. They got 5 defensive line transfers. Mm-hmm. I just wrote about one of them today.
Yeah, Daryl Jackson. Check out that story.
Daryl Jackson.
Yeah.
Doing very well.
I've kind of talked
my working better. Leonard's getting better. Leonard Taylor. Yep. Jafari Harvey is. I mean, they've got a great rotation going, and they're going to keep it going, and they're going to keep their big guys fresh by rotating. Yeah. So I do think, I think Mesidor is the guy.
Yeah, I've kind of talked myself out of Cam Kinchens during this conversation.
Cam Kinchens, here's the
thing. He's been really good. 3 interceptions.
Really good.
3 interceptions already this year, tied for 10th in the nation.
Right.
He is in a lot of ways the leader, I think, of the back end of that defense. Now the problem is back end of that defense is kind of busted a whole lot this year. So it's a little, not that they've been his fault. I think maybe one,
well, that big touchdown,
right?
That big touchdown that we blamed Tyreek Stevenson on, I think, was actually Cam's fault.
Right, against North Carolina.
Yeah, and another big play too, like a 50-something.
Yeah, so I mean, you're a safety, you're going to get burned. Like it's going to happen from time to time, but I think we've seen. I think the defensive line has just been a little steadier, and Mesidor, again, like you said, he benefits in a lot of ways from the rotation they have, but he's also the guy who's pacing them in snaps every week pretty much. And I love Cam Kinchens as a leader. I love, obviously, he's been a playmaker for this team with 3 interceptions and a fumble recovery. But I think on a play-to-play basis, Mesidor has just been more consistent, probably more valuable too. But didn't want to ignore Cam because he's been excellent this year as well. And I think got overshadowed a little bit by James Williams for obvious reasons. But those two are such a good tandem. They complement each other so well. They're I mean, and they'll both be back next year, right? Mesidor, like we said, could go to the NFL, but Cam and James Williams and Leonard Taylor and Daryl Jackson, there's a whole lot of young guys that we're going to be talking about as potential defensive MVPs this time next year. Last one of these like individual awards, freshman, who's been the most impressive freshman to you? There's basically 3 candidates. It's basically Jaleel Skinner on offense, who's been the backup tight end for a couple of weeks now, and might have to start this weekend depending on Will Mallory's injury status. You got Wesley Bassant, you got Nigel Kelly on defense. Which one of those to you has been the most impressive freshman?
Well,
or the freshman of the year. I shouldn't say most impressive freshman. I should say which one has been the if you're giving out a freshman of the year.
Well, right now, freshman of the first half, I would say Nigel Kelly.
Yeah, 2 sacks.
He has 2 sacks. Yeah, the 2 tackles for loss. He has 5 tackles, but he's definitely dominant in there, and he's just a freshman. And he's going to see more playing time also. Jaleel, I'm not saying Jaleel isn't doing a good job and stuff, but I think Kelly
I think
is.
I think the two defensive guys have been. I think you could kind of make a case for either. I'd probably go with Kelly just because you said 2 sacks. He benefits certainly from the rotation, right? Where he is out there, I think basically been a dozen snaps a week for the last couple of weeks, and he's in there just basically go rush the passer. Not a whole lot more complex than that. Basaint is, really solid, and his snap numbers are going way up over the last few weeks. But I think again, I think the defense is all about the defensive line right now, right? Their worst performances have been the games where they have not gotten pressure. Their best performances have been the games when they have. And Kelly is a big part of that rotation, and I'd expect he's going to increasingly become a big part of that rotation as we go.
Great.
Okay, a couple others. What has been your biggest surprise this year in a positive light? We'll do the negative next, but let's start with the positive.
Might be. The person who came to mind immediately was Corey Flagg. Not that Corey Flagg was bad last year. It's just that the linebackers were definitely the weakness, right?
Yes.
Of the team. And Corey's been outstanding. Okay. He's been really good. So he has 2.5 sacks. He has 9.5 tackles for loss. He leads the team in tackles. He's very smart. He's kind of the quarterback of those linebackers. He's I don't know. I think he's done a really good job.
Yeah, they love him in run support. He's obviously the kind of anchor of what they do there. And he's I always say with him, his mistakes look ugly because he's not the most, he's not the prototypical linebacker. He's 5'11", and he's not, he's not a track star speed. Like, he doesn't have NFL measurables. So his mistakes look ugly because he can't beat a guy to a corner, right? Like, or he gets run over, but he is really technically sound and really multiple coaching staffs have really trusted him to play big roles. And he's another guy, I think just week to week, he's continued to get better and is certainly playing his best football right now. Another positive surprise, we'll talk about him probably in a little bit, but Colby Young, you have to mention his positive surprise. I know it's only been a week and a half basically, but kind of out of nowhere. To me, it's kind of like, I not to keep harping on the defensive line, but I think we were really optimistic about what this defensive line was going to look like. But again, at the same time, there were a lot of unknowns because a lot of transfers coming together. To me, the combination kind of Mesidor and Daryl Jackson being I thought they were both going to be good. I thought certainly Mesidor was going to start. I thought Daryl Jackson was going to contribute. The fact that Mesidor has been an All-American caliber defensive end, and Daryl Jackson has been, good, far and away their best defensive tackle, and that's a group that has Jared Harrison Hunt, that has Leonard Taylor. Those two coming in and immediately kind of transforming that front, to me, is I didn't see that quite this coming. I thought they were going to be good. I thought they were going to be helpful. I thought that group as a whole was going to be good, but I didn't expect those two to just come in and totally transform what they're doing up front.
No, that's a really good point. And by the way, I'm saving Colby Young for another award.
Yes.
I didn't want to give him 2 awards. That's not fair to the other guys. So but I agree. He definitely could be the biggest surprise.
Yeah. We've just only kind of seen it for 1 week. But he's a JUCO transfer and was way down, buried on the depth chart at the start of the season, and now he looks like they're no doubt number 2. That's pretty surprising. Biggest disappointment, the flip side of our biggest positive surprise. What's the biggest negative surprise?
I don't think I'd pick one of those out.
All right, well, I'll go with mine then while you think. I think the offensive line has been kind of disappointing. We thought this was going to be obviously Zion Nelson only playing
might be biggest.
It's hard to say because he's been hurt, but he's only played in one. And the D line is for the first 3 weeks of the season, I thought that was going to be. I thought we were right on that was the strength of this offense. They ran all over Texas A&M. They protected super well against Texas A&M. Since then, the run game has disappeared.
Yeah.
They're not the physical team that Mario Cristobal wants them to be right now, and that's obviously up front on offense.
I have another one actually that just popped to mind. Jalen Knighton. Now I understand that he was injured, right? Or he had some hamstring or whatever issues, but I don't know. He just hasn't.
Yeah.
Hasn't
the whole running game has been a major disappointment. Now it was bad last year too, so we shouldn't. We were expecting them to improve, but Knighton has not been the same kind of explosive guy that we saw last year.
And he the thing is, I have to look at his stats up from last year. I don't think he had a lot of yards per carry last year either, like a ton. Did he even have 3 point something? Yeah, maybe, I don't know, but now he's averaging 3.8. I don't know. He's had some fumbles this year, I think, and he had last year. I just remember he had great hands. He caught a lot of balls. He's had some drops. I don't know. I hate giving biggest disappointment,
that's why I went with the group.
And Zion Nelson is a real big disappointment, and I'm not saying obviously it's not his fault if he's injured, but it is very disappointing. So he's not really disappointing, right. Just the situation.
The situation is disappointing. Yeah, we thought really this guy was the first round pick potentially, and
I don't think so now. Not now.
We just haven't gotten to see it, and it doesn't sound like he's coming back this weekend. Not really a whole lot of clarity on when he's going to be back. For those who, just a reminder, he had surgery in the offseason, played against Texas A&M, played off the bench, and had a setback at some point here. And they could really use him right now. Justice Oluwaseun out now for a while too. They could use another lineman out there because Ja'Kai Clark missed last game, so they're digging deep on the depth chart there right now.
By the way, I got to go back to I have to go back. He's obviously not the freshman of the year, but I loved Jakari.
Oh yeah,
Brown's 2 rushes. I mean that one rush, I was watching it today on video again. He had a 19, 20, 20. I think he had a 2-yard rush or 3-yard rush and a 19-yard rush, right? Yeah. With the Wildcat. And that second rush, oh my God, for 19 yards. I think it was on 3rd down.
Yeah, they were both third. One was 3rd and 2, one was 3rd and 1.
Oh my God. He like David, he ran forward a little and then with his back he was being tackled, and
yes,
he ran backwards. I'm not kidding. He ran backwards. It was incredible. And then he turned around again. I mean, to me, he might win that award just off that run. I don't know.
We'll see. I mean, this team, one of their biggest weaknesses in the first half is 3rd down, 3rd and short, red zone, all that situational short yardage stuff. I think that if I remember correctly, they tried to run Jakari Brown in a Wildcat, maybe against Bethune-Cookman. It's an early game, and I think they got a false starter, delay game, and they ended up not running the play. So it's obviously something they've had in their back pocket. A lot of their other options have failed, so they give him a shot against Virginia Tech, and I mean, he has earned the opportunity to keep getting looks there.
Yeah, he definitely has, and I like that they're playing him. I want him to play him more if they can. You want to keep these guys kind of motivated also.
Yeah.
And getting excited for the future.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Mario got asked on Monday about the red shirt. So obviously, you can play up to 4 games and still red shirt. He got asked about, do you monitor that with a guy? And I think he basically, I don't want to quote him exactly, but he was basically like, the way college football works right now, you can't worry about red shirts. And what he means by that is guys can transfer if they're not getting playing. You just got to play your guys when they're ready, because especially at the quarterback spot, those guys want to get on the field. They want to use their eligibility up as fast as they can and go to the NFL.
Hey, by the way, another I'm saying all these.
We're going backwards.
I'm going backwards, but I also think Will Mallory's been really good.
Slow start to the year, I would say, but
slow start for sure. Slow start. He dropped passes, but the last couple games, well,
really the last 1.5. I mean, he got hurt halfway through the
last game.
That game. Yeah,
he had a great contested catch last game. I think that's the one he got hurt on. Maybe I'm not, but 304 yards now, and he's average. Yeah, I mean. I just have this bad feeling that he's hurt.
Yeah, it looked like not a great injury. Getting hit to the head, shoulder area on a targeting.
The guys called for targeting, so there had to be something there more than we see.
Yeah. Okay. Last two I've got here. Give me a potential breakout star for the second half. Who's coming?
My breakout star for sure is Colby Young. I mean, there's no doubt. And that kid is now, he's hungry now. I mean, I could see Tyler, going to him every pass or whatever. Tyler's going to go to him a lot now.
Yeah.
And with going out, other guys have broken out too. Frank Latson is doing better, but not like Colby. So I mean that one game, and Colby 2 games ago also had two nice catches. He's like a battler, whatever. He fights for the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. And he leaps for the ball, and he wants it.
He's a very different player than Charleston Rambo, but you can see that Tyler is like using him in the same way, where that's the guy on the outside who he's seeing in one-on-one coverage and saying, if I put this in a pretty good spot, then he's going to make this catch. And Frank Ladson, like you mentioned, is another guy who's coming on strong. Weirdly, he's like kind of eating a lot in the middle of the field, which is not, he's a 6, I don't know what he listed at 6'3". Or he's bigger, he's a bigger receiver too, who you'd expect to make those plays on the outside. And Josh Gaddis on Monday said like that's the next step for him. He's got to make those tough contested catches. But I mean, Colby Young has separated himself right now. It'll be interesting to see what happened. Jacoby George could return this weekend after missing the last 3 games with a hand injury. Xavier Restrepo could be back a few weeks later. It'll be interesting to see how that snap, how the target share shakes out, but Colby that's a weapon that Tyler has been looking for all year, basically.
Oh, for sure. I don't see, and now with also Brashard Smith coming on, I don't know about Jacoby George. I mean, maybe, but I can't see him coming back from an injury. I don't know. I can't see a lot of throws his way. Not with, I see Colby. I see Brashard, Frank Latson, Michael Redding was out.
Yep, he could also be back this weekend.
And Keyshawn Smith, who I think was dinged up. I think.
He's someone. I thought about making him my breakout star of the second half because, and again, he is already arguably a star as a return. He's the best kick returner in the country right now in terms of yards per return.
Yep, number 1.
But as a wide receiver in the passing game, we just have not, every once in a while I'll take the top off with his speed, but we still just haven't seen it totally click into place where Tyler trusts him seemingly in the way that he trusts a guy like Colby Young or trusted Rambo last year. I'm still waiting for it. You see it. He gets open down the field a lot. He makes some tough catches when he gets them. And I wonder, as Tyler recaptures his confidence and wants to take more and more deep shots, if he's going to be a beneficiary of that, even if, he has not proven it yet. My breakout star, though, I'm going with Wesley Basaint, and that's just because I'm looking at the way his snap counts are increasing every week. I think Flagg and Keontra Smith are kind of locked. I know Wayne Steed started a few weeks ago. But I think Flag and Keontra have kind of been the top two for a little while here. Caleb Johnson has been a little disappointing, I think, based on what Miami was hoping they were going to get with him, with a no doubt starter. But I think Basaint is headed toward that top four, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see some weeks later on in this season where he's third on the team and snaps among linebackers, because he every week is getting a bigger and bigger role, and he never looks out of place there.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a huge part of it with freshmen, right? Is a lot of, you think of it with like Leonard Taylor last year. It's like he had all those tackles for loss. Why didn't he play more? Because he's a freshman. He makes mistakes, and a bad mistake can outweigh a really positive play. And again, we're not.
And they have more guys.
I'm not watching Wesley Basaint on every snap, but it does not seem like he's making a lot of mistakes out there, which is a huge part of the battle for a freshman.
He's really good, and he's going to be great. And I also think on the defensive line, like we said last year, they just didn't have that many people. Right. I mean, now they have more people rotating. Everybody's fresher. Just everybody's better.
It's weird. Like I thought for sure, like Leonard Taylor was going to be a guy who like maybe defensive MVP, and it's not like he's been a disappointment. They just have so many guys that,
right.
He's only playing 20 snaps a game. It's hard to be the best guy on the field when you're doing that. But obviously, he's got a lot of tackles for loss. He's got sacks. He's producing when he's out there, and all it has definitely benefited all those guys. We're running out of time.
Can I go back? I know we don't have much time. Can I go back again?
Yeah.
Talk to me about Gil Frierson.
Yeah, he's kind
never
of
see him.
We never played a lot last year either. I think it's just he's like a hard fit. I don't know. It's been disappointing, I think, because everyone likes to go over Frierson. Even Kevin Steele a couple of weeks ago was like trying to figure out ways to get him in there, but he's he was recruited as a cornerback. He played linebacker. Like he's just a guy who's played everywhere, and it sometimes versatility can be a weakness if you don't have a clear cut role. Before we wrap things up, what's your prediction for the rest? 3-3. How many wins do they get the rest of the way? Unless they run the table, it's going to be underwhelming compared to what we said in the preseason. But what do they get to?
I think I said originally 9-3 would be great. I don't see they're not going to go 9-3. They've lost 3 already. They're going to lose, to me, at least 2 maybe 3. So they're either going to go 7-5, my prediction, or oh my God, 6-6.
Yeah, my new prediction 7-5. You look at, you don't want to chalk anything up as an obvious win, but Duke this weekend, Virginia the week after, and Georgia Tech in a few weeks. Those are all games where Miami is, going to be pretty, but I think they're an 8 or 9 point favorite on Duke this weekend. Like that's going to be par for the course on those games. They're going to be pretty heavy favorite. Then the other 3 at Clemson, I'm just going to chalk that up as a loss for now. And then 2 home games against Pitt and Florida State. I think they split those. Those are the pivot games to me. Like, could they go 5-1 the rest of the way? It wouldn't stun me, right? It would mean they have to improve a lot from what we saw in the first half, but they've got, none of those. The ACC is not so good that Pitt and Florida State, 2 unranked teams at home, feel unwinnable.
Agree.
Yeah, but also like they could lose all 3 of those and screw one up and be 5-7. Like they're a lot still to go to determine what the season's gonna be like. But 7-5 feels like a safe prediction for me. Obviously wouldn't be the result that anyone is looking for on year 1 for Mario Cristobal, but considering the way things started and the way things looked after the Middle Tennessee game, you get to a bowl game, win the bowl game. If you go 7-5 and win the bowl game, win Miami's first bowl win since the West Virginia Champ Sports Bowl or whatever it was called back then.
That's right.
That would be a nice little consolation prize. So
it would, but we're always saying win the bowl game, and somehow I don't know that bowl game.
That's why it would matter. That's why I think winning a bowl game, like to me, it's like kind of whatever in a lot of cases. But it's been so long that Miami has won one.
It's important.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap things up there. You can follow Susan on Twitter at @smiller_degnan. Check out all of her coverage from this week. Wrote about Colby Young, wrote about Daryl Jackson, wrote about the passing game. A lot of, a fun week to write about Miami because it was kind of new guys popping up, right? Colby Young, Frank Ladson,
Yep.
some guys that we hadn't seen a whole lot of or talked. Some guys we hadn't seen a whole lot of or talked to a whole lot or talked about much. You can follow me on Twitter at DBWilson2. A lot of Miami stuff this week from me too, as well as some Panthers, some NASCAR this weekend. Or it's busy times in South Florida.
Dolphins,
Dolphins, Heat tip off. We're recording this Wednesday, so tonight. But anyway, let's wrap things up there. Thanks as always for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.